Most entrepreneurs are playing a game that they never chose, by rules that they never wrote, all to win a prize they don't actually want. None of this is conscious, of course, right? It's an unconscious attempt to manage uncertainty by borrowing on someone else's certainty who seems to have created the success that they want. So they copied someone else's offer, someone else's funnel, someone's content strategy, someone else's definition of scale. And the unintended consequence of this is that they end up building someone else's life. And so a business like that can make good money or even great money. It may look impressive from the outside, but privately, the founder resents it. Sometimes they outright hate it. Quite often, and I've seen this so many times, they sabotage it without knowing. And occasionally they burn the whole thing down after a few years because they just don't want to run it and they don't want to scale it. They don't want more of what they're currently doing because what they've actually built is a job. Now, this may be a really well-paid job. It may be a job with fancy striped screenshots, a really great personal brand that's actually built to amplify the character that they think they need to play, or a Slack workspace full of fires to put out every day. But if you're doing things that you don't really want to do just to get paid, that's still a job, right? I call that getting paid to perform. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that every business is actually built on invisible rules. And if you don't consciously choose these rules, the market's going to choose them for you. Make more, grow faster, answer immediately, keep adding more funnels to get more leads, do whatever works, even if it's fundamentally misaligned to who you are and what you want. And then repeat it every month until you sell the company, burn out, or begin fantasizing about opening a small bakery after watching yet another founder navigate an existential crisis on Instagram or YouTube by baking sourdough. There's another way to build. And it's actually the only way to play the game of business if you want a business you actually love. And if that's not what you want, this video is going to be a huge waste of your time because you must decide what the business must produce. You must decide what it must protect. You must give it rules that amplify both. And then you must architect the business around those rules so it actually produces 3 returns at the same time: money, meaning, and what I call mojo. Not eventually, but every single day by design. So in the last video, I argued that your business should turn you on. And if it doesn't, you should probably not try to scale it because you're just going to end up scaling complexity, dissonance, and all the undesirable things that you're currently experiencing faster and bigger to the point where you just hate your life. But just turn on without architecture is just a fleeting feeling, right? It's not sustainable. So if you want the business to become more alive as it grows, your values have to actually become rules. And those rules have to shape the actual architecture of the geometry because your business is already perfectly designed to produce exactly what it currently produces. So if it produces a lot of revenue without much profit, that's the design. If it produces profit without a lot of free time, that's the design. If it produces time, but you don't find the thing that you do every single day energizing and meaningful, guess what? That's a design. If it produces success while consuming your creativity, your relationships, your health, and all your mental bandwidth, well, congratulations, the machine's working. It's just producing the wrong return. And a lot of founders believe that they can just bolt freedom onto the business later, right? Make the money first, then simplify. Build the team first, and then get your time back. Say yes to every customer first, and then eventually become selective, right? Do the work that sells first. And then one day, when every single thing is handled, you'll actually get to do the work that you care about. And to be honest, I believed versions of that too. And to be fair, sometimes seasons require sacrifice. There are times when you just need to do what's necessary. I'm not going to pretend that every founder can begin with a 4-day week, 80 to 90% margins, and a 3-month pilgrimage through Tuscany. Reality must be invited to the meeting. But temporary sacrifice has a strange habit of becoming permanent architecture. The emergency offer you build to generate cash really fast becomes the core offer. The temporary call schedule becomes your life. The client that you accepted generally from scarcity, becomes the avatar that your entire brand becomes designed to attract. The team that you hired to solve one problem creates 5 new roles that you now have to perform. And a decade later, you're still waiting for the business to give you the life that you never actually asked it to produce. So the core principle that I've used to build a multi-million-dollar business for myself and the founders I've advised, this is going to sound deceptively simple, but it's actually quite confronting, which is this: money, meaning, and mojo cannot be deferred until after you scale. They have to be designed into the model that you're scaling. So think about it this way, right? Every business takes inputs: time, capital, attention, risk, relationships, ideas, creative life force, energy. So what should it return? Now, most people have one answer, which is money, right? Money matters a lot. And I have no interest in romanticizing an unprofitable business just because it feels spiritually nourishing or creatively engaging. Your landlord is very unlikely to accept alignment as rent, but money alone is an incomplete return. So a well-designed business, I believe, should produce 3 things: money, meaning, and mojo. So let's talk about money. Money here means more than just revenue. It means profit, income that actually feeds the founder's life, cash reserves, assets, equity, wealth that can eventually exist independent of your continued labor. Now, money gives the business durability and it gives you choice. So the question is not only how much revenue does the business make, the better question is how much material value does this business return to my life? Meaning is not the mission statement that a branding consultant wrote for you during an offsite. Meaning is the felt sense experience, this deep knowledge that the problem you're solving matters, the customer you're serving matters, the transformation matters, and your particular contribution to the world matters. It's a sense that you're living out the purpose that you were uniquely created for. It's the why that's so strong that it sometimes makes you cry. You're proud to be known for the work. You believe in what the business does to people and does for people and does for the world around it. And it's designed so growth deepens the contribution instead of diluting it. So the question here is, if this business fully realized its ultimate potential, would you be proud of what it made you famous for? And mojo, it sounds way less serious, which is partly why I like it, but it actually means something precise. Mojo is renewable founder energy: desire, joy, turn on, curiosity, courage, creative capacity, the appetite to keep playing the game even when things feel hard. So mojo means wanting more of the customers, more of the work, and more of the future created by the success. It means that your role fits your nature. It means that there's enough space in your life for you to become an interesting human being, because your business can't be more interesting than the consciousness generating it for very long. You probably already get this, but your business is always limited by the version of you running it. So the question here is, does success increase your capacity to create, or does it consume it? So money, meaning, and mojo. So this is the holy grail of business, right? And when you have all 3 perfectly aligned, I call this your return on life. And that return arrives in these 3 dimensions: money, meaning, and mojo. So revenue measures what the business receives, but return on life measures what your life receives back. So this maps directly onto the architecture that I introduced in the previous video around genius, market, and model fit. So genius is your earned secret, right? Your distinctive insight, your judgment, your taste. This is not your zone of excellence. It's not the thing that you can do really well, but it's a thing that only you can do. There's something asymmetric about this thing in terms of the enjoyment that it creates, but also the value that it creates. It's your unique ability. It's your obsession. It's this distinctive way you have of creating value in the world. Market is real human and economic desire, because people recognize the value, they want the outcome, and they pay for it. Model is the architecture that turns that value into profit and scale. So this is the offer, the pricing, the acquisition, the sales, the delivery, the operations, the team, the assets, and your role as a founder. So when market and model work together, the business can produce money. So there's demand, There's a functioning economic engine that turns that demand into cash and value for the market. But without genius, it may just be a profitable and completely interchangeable thing, right? The founder can disappear inside a business that works. Now, when you have genius and market meet, the business produces meaning. So your distinctive contribution is solving a problem that another human being genuinely cares about, cares enough to pay for it and pay really well. But without the right model, the work can become founder dependent, right? So it's important, it's valuable, but it's completely exhausting for you to deliver. Now, when genius and model fit, the business can actually produce mojo. So you're doing the work that's aligned with your nature through an architecture that you actually enjoy operating. But without market, you may have built an exceptionally elegant hobby. And at the center, when genius, market, and model become coherent, the business actually produces all three. Money, because the economics work. Meaning, because your genius meets real human desire. And mojo, because the architecture returns energy instead of chronically extracting it. The center is what I call a paid to exist business. This is not a business that just pays you well. It's a business that pays you materially, existentially, and energetically. And the missing return tells you exactly where the fit is broken. So money without meaning or mojo is what I call a profitable prison. Money and meaning without mojo is martyrdom. The mission matters, the customers benefit, and the founder slowly gets eaten alive by the business. Money and mojo without meaning can be a lucrative game that eventually feels hollow. Meaning and mojo without money may be beautiful expression, vocation, and you may be creating art, but it's not yet sustainable. When you have all three, you end up with a truly regenerative business. It converts aliveness into value, value into money, and money into greater freedom so you can create again and create more. By the way, if you want to book a chat to sketch this out for your business, there's a link somewhere down there. So why do so few businesses produce return on life? The reason is most people build by copying mechanisms instead of choosing their principles. So someone says high ticket is the answer, so they build a sales call heavy and funnel heavy business despite actually hitting those things. Someone says you need recurring revenue, so they create a membership that they actually end up presenting, feeding each month. Someone says real founders build teams, so they hire 12 people and they accidentally promote themselves into a management position that they would have never applied for. Someone says the founder must become the brand, so they chain themselves to a content treadmill and they call it leverage. Someone says you must remove yourself from delivery, so they delegate the only part of the business that actually made them feel alive. None of those mechanisms is inherently wrong, right? High ticket can work, memberships can work, teams can work, sales calls can work, content can work, delegation can work. The mistake is in installing someone else's solution without noticing the values, desires, constraints, skills, and resources, and of course, the life that made it right for them. When you copy the architecture, you also inherit the rules that are hidden inside it. Then you inherit the life that those rules produce. So this is how entrepreneurs end up with what I like to call a Frankenstein business, right? A funnel from one mentor, a delivery model from another, team structure from a podcast, content strategy from a creator who just appears like they don't sleep because they have an unlimited budget for nicotine pouches, or a massive production team. An offer stack assembled from reverse engineering screenshots of other people's Stripe accounts. Look, every piece may work independently, but together they may land you in a commercial hostage situation. The business is successful by someone else's standard, but it's actually unlivable by your own. So at best, it becomes a well-paid job. At worst, it becomes a machine that consumes every single part of the life that you actually built it to support. So the alternative is not rejecting strategy outright. It's actually choosing strategy after you choose the rules of the game, your game. So in my opinion, the best businesses should fit you like a custom-made bespoke suit or dress made out of sweatband material. Every measurement carefully taken, every line intentional, but built for your body, your proportions, your movement, your taste, and the rooms that you actually want to be in. So I think this should feel like Sunday morning, but look like Savile Row. Elegant on the outside, effortless for you to inhabit, and economically sophisticated without requiring you to hold your breath all day. Most business models are off the rack suits. So if someone tells you that this is what a 7-figure business looks like, so you put it on without thinking twice. And the sleeves are too long, the waist is cutting off circulation, you can't sit down comfortably, but everyone keeps complimenting the suit. So you assume that the discomfort is a side effect of ambition and what it actually takes to create success. It's not. It's just a poor fit. And the way you create fit is through constraints. A tailor doesn't begin by adding random fabric, right? They take measurements. Your values are those measurements. Your rules are the pattern. Your business architecture is the suit. The goal is not to build the objectively best business. There is no objectively best business. The goal is to build the business that fits your genius, your market, your desired life, the state of your nervous system that you actually want more of, your ambition, your relationships, your responsibilities, and your season. Custom fit, high performance, but sweatband material. Now, most entrepreneurs can tell me what they value. Usually, freedom is at the top. Then it's usually family, creativity, health, mastering their craft, adventure, impact. But if those values don't constrain decisions, they're just decorations. Saying you value freedom doesn't clear your calendar. Saying you value family doesn't get you home for dinner. Saying you value creativity doesn't stop delivery from consuming all your mental bandwidth. Saying you value health does not prevent the business from keeping you in a constant state of fight or flight. Look, a value becomes operational when it becomes a rule. If you value family, the rule might be home for dinner 5 nights a week. If you value creative depth, maybe it's 2 protected creation days with no calls. If you value freedom, maybe you want a business model that doesn't require constant launches or a packed calendar. If you value intimacy, you want to work only with clients that you genuinely want a relationship with. If you value profitability, maintain a minimum operating margin. If you value simplicity, you cap the number of offers, tools, or employees. And if you value sovereignty, maybe no single client can become so large that they control the business. And if you value craft, you refuse the work that requires lowering the standard that you want attached to your name. Rules create constraints. Constraints force architectural creativity. So if you decide that you'll take no sales calls, you need a different trust and sales mechanism. If you will only take calls 3 days a week, delivery must fit inside that container. If you require a specific profit margin, you can't solve every problem with more headcount. If you want 100 days away each year, then the company cannot depend on your daily presence. If you only want customers you would willingly share a meal with, then your positioning, qualification, pricing, and sales process have to filter accordingly. Look, these rules don't make business harder. They eliminate thousands of strategies that never actually belong in your business. One of your rules has to address money. And wanting more money is not enough, right? More is not a number. More is an appetite with no off switch, quite like the munchies you get when you ate that edible that your friend swore was only 5 milligrams. You need to know what the business must economically produce. What do you actually need for your life? What do you need after taxes? What level of reserves lets you sleep? How much do you want available for reinvestment? What do you want to put into long-term assets and wealth? What larger experiments, products, or missions do you want the business to fund? I like separating this into 2 numbers. So the first is your sufficiency number, which is what funds the life, the safety, the reserves, and the baseline wealth that you actually want. And the second one is your expansion number. So this funds the larger vision, investments, side quests, acquisitions, experiences, generosity, art, and impact, right? Enough does not need to become the ceiling on your ambition. Enough becomes the floor underneath it. So without a definition of enough, a company can consume infinite life in pursuit of a target that moves each time you touch it. Once you know the number, reverse engineer it. So how many customers or clients do you need? At what price? At what margin? With what retention? Through what acquisition cost? Using how much delivery capacity? With which assets continuing to produce value after the original work is complete? So this is where meaning and mojo make contact with a clear economic vision. So here's an exercise. Create a one-page document called your business constitution. This is not a 50-page brand strategy no one ever reads. It's just one page. And first, you have to define what the business must produce. So define your desired return in each category: money, meaning, and mojo. Make each one concrete enough that you could tell whether the business is actually producing it or if it's violating your principles. Second, what must the business protect? So is it your relationships? Is it your family? Is it time with kids? Is it health? Is it creative time? Is it your reputation? Is it your privacy? Is it adventure and epic experiences around the world? Is it your spiritual practice? Write the actual things that the business exists to support. And third, what can the business never require from you? Maybe it's permanent availability. Maybe it's misleading claims or you being out of integrity. Maybe it's customers that you dislike. Maybe it's constant launches. Maybe it's a really large team. Maybe it's founder dependence or daily content or traveling when you don't want to travel. Or it's performing an identity that you've outgrown that you no longer want more of. Your list will be different from mine, and it should be different. That's the point. Fourth, what are the measurable rules? What's the minimum margin? What's the maximum number of calls? What's the maximum amount of delivery hours? What's the maximum headcount? What's the minimum protected creation time? How many days away? What's your standard for customer and client quality? Cash reserves. What are the boundaries of your role as the founder? So don't hide behind words like freedom and balance. Give them numbers, thresholds, and behaviors. Fifth, what's the architecture that actually obeys those rules? So now you want to choose the right model, avatar, offer, pricing, acquisition, sales process, delivery, team, assets, calendar, and of course, how you allocate capital. Most founders do this absolutely backwards, and then they grudgingly accept the consequences. If you do this, you're reversing the order. You don't choose your rules after building the business. You choose the rules, and then you build the business that's actually capable of obeying them. Now, this is important when you're starting out, but it's even more important if you already run a multiple 6, 7, or 8-figure business. So every meaningful strategy should pass 3 tests. So the first is money, which is, does this increase durable economic value? So not indiscriminate activity or vanity revenue, actual value for the market and for you. Meaning, does this deepen or dilute the contribution that we want to make? Does it feel fulfilling, purposeful, and a reflection of the way that you want to spend your life? And mojo, does this return or consume the energy that's required to keep creating? Then you want to ask the question that reveals the cracks, which is, if this works 10 times better than expected, do money, meaning, and mojo all increase, or does one rise by consuming the other 2? Right? If the offer sells 10 times more, is your delivery going to collapse? If the content succeeds, do you want to become known for the subject? If the company grows, does your role become more aligned or less? If revenue doubles, is your profit going to double? If profit doubles, does your sovereignty increase? If demand increases, do you become more creatively alive or more operationally trapped? This is how you know whether the strategy belongs inside your bespoke sweatpants suit or whether you stole it from someone with completely different measurements. Look, the purpose of business is not merely to make money. Making money is easy. It's actually to convert human intelligence, desire, and creative life force into value and return that value as money, meaning, and a greater capacity to create again for you as the founder. Money without meaning will eventually feel hollow. Meaning without money becomes fragile. Money and meaning without mojo turn you as a founder into a martyr. Your business should not merely survive your values, it should be shaped by them. Because if you don't give the business rules, it'll continue obeying the only rule that the market gives it, which is more. More revenue, more customers, more employees, more responsibility, more of you, until there's no you left inside the thing that you built. And there are a few things that are subjective, right? Like the line between the constraints that protect us and the constraints that protect the excuses. Now that's something I'm still thinking about, and I'm probably going to make an entire video about that because rules can protect aliveness, but they can also protect fear. But playing by someone else's rules cannot produce our version of freedom, right? Our business has to be tailored to us, our genius, our market, our ambition, our relationships, our nervous system, the life we actually want, the season of life that we're actually in, custom fit like a bespoke suit, comfortable enough to live in like sweatpants, So you must decide what the business must protect. You must decide what it must produce. You must give it rules. And then you must build an architecture capable of returning all three: money, meaning, and mojo. Because the business you build is actually building you back, right? So you want to make sure you want to become what it's actually designed to produce.